Congratulations. You must be pretty chuffed with that.
Yeah, I'm very pleased and delighted. Obviously, it's my home club. And, the Southern Knights being, coordinated out to Melrose, it's interested in when the position came up. And, just really, really glad I'm going to be involved moving forward.
From what I understand, quite a bit of competition for the head coach role. What do you think made the difference from your point of view? What was the thing that ticked the boxes for what the people wanted?
I think obviously we've had quite a lot of success within the club, 15 in the Storm this year. Again, you can ask questions around what success means for different clubs. But again, we're doing reasonably well in the leagues. But I think more importantly than that, we've got 50 boys training regularly down at the club Tuesday, Thursdays, and we've got a really good positive environment and developing a really strong culture within the club just now. We've got a lot of youngsters coming through the system from our youth section, and we've had quite a lot of players return playing, whether it's students or players that have returned from other clubs. So I think just sort of the alignment of the club's been really strong the last year and a half. Everybody's pulling in the same direction, and again, I think that's something moving forward that we'll look to try and do more so with the Knights as well. But again, it's I've been involved in rugby for over 20 years now as a professional coach, so it's for me it's probably an extra aggression for me, and like thinking it can add a fair bit to the role. I came out of uni, certainly the first borders development stuff in place, and not long after myself, maybe a year later, so had the Hoyk, had a couple of Hoyk guys, Craig Dunlea was on board, and Joe, and then Clark Laidlaw came on at Jed, and we had the Dave Gray, I think, was up at Gala, and it was overseen by Greg Laidlaw and Richie Gray. That seems a long time ago now, but it's great to see that things have gone strength to strength, and a lot of these border clubs have got developers now, which is really important. And Borders rugby, it's massive. It's the heartbeat of Scottish rugby for myself, and to have these sort of development pathways and guys in place is really important.
And I think also looking at what was required for the job, having a strong borders connection was vital. And I understand there was someone from South Africa and there's a few from outside of the area, and immediately they would have to really put a strong case for why they should be involved, because you know what the Borders is like. It's a place where people need to know you've got the Borders very much in your mind.
Yeah, I mean, like with these roles, you're always going to get a lot of interest from out with the country and further afield, and there'll be a lot of good candidates involved. But as you say, it's key. It's quite important that people understand who the person is. They've got maybe an affinity with them in the wider community, and it just helps that transition as well. Things have happened much quicker if you know the ins and outs of how the clubs and the Borders rugby, the history of it, and how it all lies. So yeah, I'd like to certainly think that helped.
Now, of course, the Southern Knights, Melrose, etc., it's always going to divide people. We know about that. We know the history. We won't go into that. But Rob Christie was always sort of very much saying the facility is there, the opportunities are there at Southern Knights. If you don't want to be a player who wants to be involved with the Southern Knights, that's absolutely fine. But if you do, there's opportunities.
That's exactly right. And Robert did a great job sort of kicking that off. The Southern Knights isn't going to everybody's cup of tea, whether you're a player or a supporter or a board member, committee member of the clubs. But it's there, it's a pathway, it's in place. It's something that is required to try and bridge that gap between club rugby and professional rugby. When we're Glasgow, and our task as Super6 coaches is to develop that next generation and provide them with opportunities to develop them and give them that springboard to then go into these professional teams.
And I think also you hinted at it there about it wasn't just the players, there were sort of former committee people or people on the board who haven't bought in to what the direction is that Rob Moffat is putting things in as well. And Rob said himself, if people don't want to get on board with what we're doing, then that's absolutely fine. But it is so important to have a clear vision of what you want for the future. Is that a fair comment?
Yeah, that's absolutely fair. I think, again, you're never going to please everybody. You sometimes have to crack a few eggs to make an omelette, and that's exactly what will continue to happen. It's not everybody's cup of tea, but it's in place. A lot of people are on board with it. The young players coming through the pathways, and even guys who in their early 20s who develop at a later stage. These guys will have opportunities to develop and be part of the Southern Knights if they're at that standard.
And certainly, the history tells us that anyone involved with the Melrose Club in particular, and we've spoken to many, many players over the years, they've always felt that the club has had their backs, and again, that's something which always comes out, that you're well looked after within the club as a player, from Jim Telfer days right up to now.
Yeah, exactly. You go back decades. Players have always come to Melrose. That's the reality of it. Rob Muffet's probably said the same. It's good facilities, good setup. Players are well looked after, and you look at the numbers of players, dozens of players, probably the last 30 years anyway, that have been around Melrose. It's people just like the town, like how they looked after. They've got a good setup, and again, I don't see that changing. Again, it's maybe not for everybody, which is fine, but again, it's important that players out there know, look, if they are keen to develop, be nurtured, and be well looked after, then the Southern Knights that's a platform for these young guys. And again, as always, like what Robert Christie did, work closely with other clubs and ensure there's as harmonious and good working relationship as possible, just to ensure that ultimately the players, the most important thing at the end of the day is they're developing and enjoying the rugby.
And it's important, I think, as well, from a player's perspective, to know that there is no uncertainty about the future. And I think with the Super 6, although we've all enjoyed a very good season, there was not one game cancelled, the standard is good, but there will be players who will say that sitting on the bench quite often is not what they signed up to, and there is a lot of that with a big squad, obviously, but also the uncertainty over fixtures. And initially we were kind of promised a cross-border tournament and something other than the round-robin Super 6. We can see that it's probably going to go to a Super 8 with London Scottish and a Glasgow side in the future, and even more teams coming in, which will certainly address that. But for next season, is there something on the table, or is there things being done on behalf of the players to guarantee them more rugby?
I think the drums are banging behind the scenes with Scottish rugby, Stuart. I mean, I'm not 100% sure at this stage how the season's going to be, what the outlay of is at the moment. I've not been privy to any conversations or detail on that, but I do know, as you say, that there are plans that are fully being made behind closed doors now, which we'll all find out about in due course. Regarding that sort of player development, the progressive players, you're right. There's again, I've got quite a clear vision that you look specifically at your 30 stage 3 academy players that are aligned across the 6 clubs. A lot of these players haven't had game time again, which for me kind of contradicts the whole purpose of the Super 6. These guys have been identified as the future talent, strong players. So these guys need to play. Wherever they're from in Scotland, they get allocated to the Super 6 clubs, and they need the game time, they need the experience, need to be nurtured, and as well as learn the values of the game. And you do need to hold their heads within these clubs, which bring these players on, and to get that balance is probably quite a difficult thing. But again, for me, you look at the clear vision from Scottish Rugby to develop players, to nurture them for professional rugby. Well, that can only happen if these guys are playing regularly. And that really is important. Massively important, yep. And again, that's something that we'll look to really involve these young players and get them involved within the Southern Knights. And again, it's not only just for the Stage 3 Academy players. There's a lot of players that come out. You look at the last 5 years, get churned out the Scottish under-20s. Really good players, work really hard at their game, and maybe a third of them get contracted to Glasgow and Edinburgh, the other 2/3 don't. But ultimately, these other 2/3 players are still your best players in the country for that age group, and that's where I think the Super 6 is really strong as well. They can help, still continue to provide the platform and opportunities for these guys to kick on, even if they aren't selected at that stage for Glasgow and Edinburgh professional full-time contracts. Now, currently at Melrose, obviously you are at the moment. When does this all start? When does Southern Knights kick in for you? And also understand Bert Grace, which is great news for him, age 28, moving up to be head coach of the Melrose side. Yeah, so for myself, Stuart, my position will start mid-January. The Southern Knights will probably look to be kicking off practically with the pre-season with the first week or second week in February. Again, a lot of details to iron out just now. And Bert Greg, really solid coach, really good person. He's come in and done really well in the club. 15 in Storm. He's got respect to the players. Technically very sound. He's been leading the defence this year and assisting with the scrum and line out. So he deserves his opportunity. Again, a young guy, but very focused, very determined. He's got a real clear vision of how he wants his future to develop, and we're really pleased that Bert accepted that. And again, we'll be, the Southern Knights and the Club 15 Storm, down through our midi section, we'll be aligned probably a lot better than what we have been maybe in the past. And Bert's just one of the coaches, within the club that's got a promising future. So we'll look to swing the harness and nurture that and continue to develop people.
And it really is fantastic, isn't it? The track record for Borders coaches.
Well, that's it. The kind speaks for itself, doesn't it? With all the coaches out there. I mean, we could talk about the Melrose, former Melrose players that are out in the Scottish community and wider afield that have done really well. But again, you look further afield with other Borders clubs, and there's a lot of great guys, great coaches, got a really solid understanding of the game. I think a lot of that comes down to, again, we've talked about the history of the Borders and rugby and things, but these guys they've been playing rugby for a long time. Their communities and their towns are really immersed in the rugby, buy into it, and that just helps instill sort of values from a young age of what rugby's all about, what it means to people. And you can talk technically and tactically about rugby. However, the bigger part of it is let's get some real vibrancy and positiveness throughout the clubs, and that's what supporters and boards and people want to see is just people coming down, trying really hard and enjoying themselves.
Now, how much say will you get in terms of who comes on board? Who will be the players that are contracted to Southern Knights in the future? Is it up to you to go out and kind of try and tempt people to come and join up as a Southern Knight, or how do you go about recruiting?
Yeah, so we've got a bit of work to do over the next couple of months in terms of recruitment. So again, that's probably first and foremost where we're at. Primarily, I'll be in my hands and shoulders to go out and recruit. But again, it's not a one-man job at any time. We've got other people within the club and directors that'll help there. And again, we'll have conversations with the other coaches, especially around the Borders. Who's coming through? Who do you think really shined over the last 6 months? Who deserves opportunities? And we'll work it from there. But certainly, it's a task that will be high on the agenda initially.
Well, I think you're going to be a busy man, that's for sure. It's going to be exciting times ahead, though, and we certainly look forward to working with you throughout the season when it all starts again. And the very best of luck with Southern Knights.
Thanks, Stuart. Appreciate your time as always.